Welcome to the High Performance Interviews. Today I'm joined by Maxine Legall, and she is from New York. So, welcome, Maxine.
Thank you, Lucy. It's great to be here, and I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Fantastic. It's great to have you here. Before we get started and we dive into your story, Maxine, I would just love to introduce you to our listeners. Now, Maxine is a dynamic speaker and the driving force behind Thrive Inclusively, which is a premier consulting firm based in New York. With over 20 years of groundbreaking experience in healthcare, nonprofit, and corporate sectors, Maxine delivers powerful insights and actionable strategies to help organizations thrive through transformative initiatives and leadership development. So, wow, Maxine, that sounds absolutely awesome. I'm sure that just didn't fall out of the sky for you. So, give us a little bit of your background, where you got started, and maybe some pivot points along the way.
I wish I could say it was like a natural organic journey, but it wasn't. I actually started off going to school to study social work
Oh,
many years ago. Yeah, I did social work when I graduated from social work school. I got my first job working for a mentoring organization called Big Brothers Big Sisters. And I loved what I did, and it was a great culture, great organization, but I wanted to do more. And after 2 years, I moved into healthcare, where I ran the volunteer program for a hospital here in New York. I did that for several years, felt like I wanted to do more. Went into the for-profit world for a little bit. Then, unfortunately, the recession hit and a lot of people were laid off, including myself. And I went back into healthcare. And when I went back into healthcare, I said to myself, I'm going to stay here for a while. I think this is where I want to be. And the beauty of it is the organization that I went to work for, they actually sponsored or paid for people to get their MBA in healthcare management to boot. And so I said, I'm going to do this. And I was hesitant to do it. I was a mom. My daughter must have been maybe about 2 years old. I had doubts about going back at that time, but I knew I had a passion for healthcare. I knew that's what I wanted to do. Went back, did the degree, and then really moved into what's called here in the States patient experience or patient satisfaction, which is really looking at the type of care that our patients receive when they come into a hospital from beginning to end, point A to point B. All right. What was it like even coming into the emergency department? What was it like setting up your appointment for your planned procedure and walking them through, being with them along that journey until they get home and even after? And so, what patient experience professionals want to do is they want to create environments within organizations where patients can feel that they're being heard, they're being valued. They're being treated with compassion. Well, in order to do that, you have to be able to be someone that can influence and impact cultures.
mm.
And I do believe that the first leader to give me the role saw that I was that type of person, and I'm just so thankful for him. And so I did that at a children's hospital for a couple of years, and then I went into doing it for another hospital in the city. And that's when I really started to hone in on my craft, right? I loved working with people. I loved training and development. I loved focus groups, cultivating cultures of inclusion, bringing people in. I love transforming cultures. We did a lot of work around values. We did a lot of work around the mission and the vision for the organization, and then bringing people into the room to be a part of that. And that was a good 5 or 6 years of my life. Well, what happened during that time as well was that there was a lot of talk around equity and inclusion. So that also fell into my work. I left there and went on to be a DEI chief for a not-for-profit for about 2 years. And then I've left that organization and I've decided, hey, why not start a company where I'm able to do all the things that I've enjoyed doing? So that's my journey.
Oh my goodness. Wow, that's amazing. I love that. And you talked about so many interesting things. I kind of want to grab hold of it. You had mission and vision. You really were talking about the customer journey, which we all need to make sure if we're entrepreneurs and looking for that high performance for ourselves is making sure that customer journey has its uniqueness and the customer feels heard and seen and taken care of. And that if we're under promising, we're over delivering on our promises,
I like
right?
that.
So it was all of these things like, oh, Maxine, that sounds fantastic. And the healthcare side. And I
Yeah.
totally get that as well. When you when you know that you've got something there that is speaking your language, that is making you sing, that
Hmm.
that is like, I know this is the thing I need to
Hmm.
do and want to do
Hmm.
and love doing.
Absolutely.
And so I can really feel that coming through as well. And I love the way that you've now combined everything and put all of that together in what you're doing. So, okay, with what you're doing at the moment, what you're doing right now, are you at the beginning level of that? Are you kind of quite a way through that? How many years have you been doing what you're doing? Having taken, I know you've taken all of that from all the past experience,
Hmm.
but going out on your own and doing this thing, how long has that been?
Well, I just want to say going out on your own is petrifying. I started my company in March of 2024. And even in starting the company, I had so many doubts and so many reservations. Thank goodness for great coaching. I have a great coach. But I started in March of 2024 because I realized there was a lot of things I've learned to do, a lot of things I could do. We often think that we have to work for other people all the time. That's not the case for everyone. Entrepreneurship is definitely a choice that we have. It's definitely a choice we have as women. And I dare say it's definitely a choice I have as a woman of color. And so when I was thinking about it, it was like, no, I can't. No, no, I'm not ready yet. No, I can't do this. And then one day it was like, why am I talking myself out of this? You've had the experience. You could have easily taken that experience into another role. Why can't you take that experience into working for yourself?
Yeah. Yeah. It does take a certain kind of person to work for themselves, that's for sure.
It
There are
does.
characteristics of somebody that can be really, really good at what they do. They go
Right,
work for themselves and they just can't. And it's
right,
just not their thing. And there are
right.
others like the entrepreneur in them is just waiting to leap out
Reading. Yeah.
and get going. It sounds like your entrepreneur was waiting to leap out and get going.
I think I fought with myself. That entrepreneur fought with my inner self because I think that when you work for yourself, you have to know yourself. You have to like yourself. You have to trust yourself.
Mhm.
And that takes time when you have spent so much of your career working for other people, knowing them and trusting them. And so making that transition, it's not an easy thing, but it's worth the journey. I'll say that to you.
Yes. So if there's somebody listening that is thinking, that sounds like something I need to do, and I've been thinking about going from the workplace, because this is something I haven't done, right? So I've always worked for myself, always been self-employed.
Oh,
So
nice.
if somebody is out there going, I like what Maxine's saying. That's really speaking to me, and I've been thinking about that. And but there's this voice of doubt going on in my mind, like you say. There's always that little niggle, isn't there? What would you say to that person at this moment? Because you've had that experience.
I'd say this, and it's a quote that I've seen that said something to the effect of fear has killed more dreams, right? Or doubt has killed more dreams than most of us ever will. A lot of us think about owning our own company. I butchered that quote, but the premise behind it is we get into our way all the time and we're always, I can't do that. I can't do that. I can't do that. I can't do that. And it should be, I can do this. I
Yeah.
should try this. And that's what I would say to people who are thinking about doing it. The other thing is you can go into it in two different ways. You can do it part-time.
Hmm.
There's so much talk now, I think, in light of how the economy has been on the up and down, about people thinking about opening up their own business, even if they're working full-time for another organization. Why? Because it's the gig economy now. And you'll never know if that position, things can happen.
Hmm.
Life happens. And so if you lose that role, what if you had something else to fall back on? What if you got sick and tired of working for that person and you were grateful you had something to fall back on? So going into this, one can do it one of two ways. They can do it on the side,
Hmm.
or it might be something that they just want to pursue full time. But if there's a heart calling for it and it's something that keeps coming up, I think we do ourselves a disservice if we don't listen.
Yes, I love that. I love that. And you're so right. It's saying rather than, I can't do that. It's like, how can I do that?
Yeah.
How can I? Such a,
Growth mindset. Hmm.
yeah, that question is so much better. You've got the growth mindset or you've got that limited mindset, and
Fixed.
be
Yeah.
as open as you can to
Yeah.
possibilities. And when you
Yeah.
are,
Mm.
you then get the vision and the mission that you were talking about. So
Of
tell us
course.
more about what came for you with your vision and your mission when you were thinking about making that huge transition that you made at the beginning of 2024?
So in the last role that I had the opportunity to start a program called Thrive. And so that was a professional development program. It was meant to engage employees, help them to go back to school if they wanted to, support them with tuition. It was a mentorship program. And I was building it out. And when I turned to start this company, I thought to myself, well, why not stay in the same vein, right? And I added that part inclusively because the rationale is, we should all be thriving. And what can we do to continue to thrive together? I think that there's so much separation. And I thought to myself, what if I did something where I can encourage people to thrive and also be able to thrive with the people around them as well? And
Mm.
so I took a little bit of what I did from my former organization, but then looked at all the things I've done over the course of my career. And most of my work involved bringing people together. I'll say this to you. I was talking to a former colleague of mine. When I ran the volunteer program at one of my organizations, she brought her daughter to be a volunteer. And I sat with her, I interviewed her, I gave her a great volunteer role in one of our pediatric programs. And that was years ago. I moved on, she's moved on. This mom tells me she's now a physician.
Oh,
And
wow.
she remembers you. She remembers you interviewing her and placing her and, just the exposure that she got to medicine. And she was so thankful for that experience.
Mm.
And I thought to myself, well, look at that, right? A perfect example of Maxine, your passion, which
Yeah.
is how can we bring people in? How can we listen to what their needs are? How can we give them the tools they need to move forward? And so when I thought about the mission and vision for my company, I wanted to stay right in that same mindset of what can I do as an entrepreneur? What can I do as a coach or a consultant to bring people in? So in addition to the coaching and the speaking, I also, I do writing. And
Oh,
the
okay.
mindset behind that, right, is also making people think differently, right? Move toward more of that growth mindset and challenge them to connect and be kind to the people around them. And so I think that's where it all came from.
Yeah, and it makes such a huge difference. And again, something popped up in my head when you were talking about the daughter of your friend was people don't really care how much you know until they know how much you care. And you
Mhm.
clearly cared and you helped her and look, she's now thriving.
I know.
Yeah, that's
And
just
it's happening
magical.
more. Like more of them are reaching out to me and saying, "Hey, I'm a physician now. Hey, I'm a researcher now." And it's
What does that do for you?
oh man, it's just the emotions and you just feel great about that. That you've sowed a seed.
Yeah,
And I'm a firm believer that what we do comes back to us. And
yeah, me
so if
too.
I was able to invest in a young person and that person is able to move forward and save lives, I'm not saving lives, but I do believe that that'll come back to me, right? Because of what they're doing. And that's like that's what it's all about. I'm going to share a lot of things with you, but I'll say this to you.
Yeah.
I did a post on LinkedIn and I asked people, who are you thankful for? And drop a note about a mentor or a sponsor or a leader that you've worked for. And the comments were just beautiful. And you realize how we're all interconnected because
Mhm.
someone would mention someone. I'm like, how did they know that person? Well, they worked for that person. Well, I know that person too. And you saw the community behind it, but you also saw the impact we have on each other and how, my mentor, because someone or a former leader of mine who's also a mentor, because someone sewed into him, he sewed into me. And you see how that just keeps going and going. And Lucy, it's a beautiful thing.
It is a beautiful thing. It's like the circle of life, isn't it? It's like
It is.
what I can do and what I can learn, I can give to you, and then that gets passed on. And you never know the ripple
Absolutely.
effect of all of
You
that. It's
never know the
just
ripple effect. You don't.
no, no. And some people say, "Oh, I don't affect anybody. Nobody takes in notice." Well, they do,
Mhm.
but then it does depend on what you're saying, what effect you're
Yeah,
making on somebody.
yeah, yeah,
Your
yeah,
words
yeah,
will land on the ears that are ready to hear them.
yeah,
And so, like you're saying, be kind, be
yeah,
inclusive, be open
yeah,
as much as possible because it
yeah.
makes a difference to people.
It makes a big difference.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
huge difference. And we
Kind
all
word. Go
and
ahead.
no one can say that they don't have impact or they don't make a difference. There's a story. No one knows if it's actually true. I think it's called an apocryphal. It's a story of when President John F. Kennedy toured NASA back in 19 I was before his death and he died in 63, so perhaps it was 1961. And he wanted us to put a man on the moon before the end of, I think, the 60s. And so people bought into his vision. So he's touring NASA and he comes across a man who's cleaning the building in overalls and he has a broom or a bucket and he's cleaning. And, the entire day the president was walking around asking people what they do, what their job is. So he goes to this janitor and he says, "What do you do here? What's your job?" And the janitor says, "I'm here to put a man on the moon." And he was really impressed by that. Again, I don't know if the story is true, but the idea behind it is everyone plays a part, everyone brings value. If
Mm.
he was there and believed it was his job to put a man on the moon, if everyone believes that, you're going to be able to put a man on the moon. Now, he didn't work with any of the computers or do any of, the aeronautical acrobats that they had to do that, but he recognized that his role carried impact. I
Yeah.
think that's important for people.
That's a beautiful story. I do love that. Everybody matters.
Yep,
Everybody matters.
absolutely.
We're all pieces in the puzzle of the thing that we're doing, right? And the life in general.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I love that story, Maxine.
Thank you. Thank you.
And so you talked about your vision and your mission. So would you say your mission is different than your vision?
I think a vision is going to tell me where I want to go. I think a mission tells you how you're going to get there. And
Ah.
so, if you're saying that I want to be the premier consultancy in transformational leadership and inclusion, then that's the vision. How am I going to get there? I'm going to get there by providing groundbreaking keynotes and wonderful workshops and transformational strategies that'll allow organizations and individuals to grow and develop. That's how I see it.
Mm. Yeah, wonderful. Okay. And then on your journey, and not on your complete journey, not just on this part of the journey, how do you find that you're bringing in? So we talked about growth mindset. So
Mhm.
you've got a growth mindset. You discovered that you had this little voice that was telling you you can't, you can't, you can't until you slapped it around a bit and said, yes, I can. Why not me? So what other strategies have you come across for yourself that you're using to be able to get you to the level that you are growing to and you have already grown to, Maxine?
One of the things that has helped me tremendously is my faith. I'm a Christian. And so a lot of what I do and how I do it, I think is centered around God. And I think that to the degree that we place him in the center of what we do and ask him for guidance, that impacts our mindset and the direction that we move into. That's my belief.
Mhm.
People are successful regardless of that. But I'm saying for Maxine,
Yeah.
I think that that has been a driving factor for me. And so, one of the things that I take very seriously is prayer. I do believe it's a great way to start the day. I do believe it sets the tone for the day. I've heard other people say that they start the day with perhaps meditation, and that's what sets the tone for them. For me, it's certainly prayer, and it's finding peace in knowing that there's someone you can talk to who sees the greater or the bigger picture. The other thing that I've been very intentional about is taking better care of my body.
Oh, good.
Lucy, I don't know about you, but the older I get, the more I realize that my body can't do a lot of the things it used to be able to do. There's a lot of jokes on social media about, I think someone put something to the effect of, "Dear naps, I'm so sorry I didn't appreciate you when I was older, but I understand the value you bring now." I think that as you get older, your body needs more rest. And so it's about being intentional and listening to your body and putting yourself to bed at a decent time and exercise
Yeah.
and being mindful of what you're eating and watching
Mm.
that because all of that ties into how you perform,
Oh, totally.
And
Yeah.
so I think that making a commitment to do more of that for me has been great. It's also easier to do that as an entrepreneur because you set your schedule. I would say for people who are working for someone else, it's still important that they do that because then
Yes.
they can bring their best self to what they're doing. And
Okay. Yeah.
because self-care is integral. Whether you work for yourself or work for someone else, self-care is very, very, very important.
Mm.
So that's
Yeah,
what I would say. That's helped me.
definitely. Yeah. And we're going to dig deeper on those three things,
Yeah, sure.
starting with sleep, because sleep is like your best meditation.
Yeah.
It's where your head, your frontal cortex goes off to sleep, but the rest of you is still working and it's doing the good stuff, you know?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
the subconscious mind is working away while you're sleeping. That's meditation. It's your best meditation. And it is part of your work. Sleep is part of your work. You have to sleep. And if you
Exactly.
can get 7 or 8 hours really good sleep a night, then you are going to be smashing it throughout the day
Yeah.
because, like Maxine said, you are filled up. You can do your prayer, your gratitude, your meditation, whatever it is that centers you and gives you peace at the beginning of the day. And that's a lovely thing to do. And for me, I do the same type of thing. And then once you've got that covered, because that is really, really underplayed, I think, and it's so, so important.
It
And
is.
then you talked about exercise, Maxine. So what kind of exercise do you do personally?
So I've been trying new things recently because a friend of mine who's a nurse practitioner who owns her own company, she said that as we get older as women, we need to do more weightlifting, heavier weights. And I wasn't doing that, Lucy. I was doing my little weights because I have this fear of like, you know, kind of growing muscles of some sort and no longer having, the
Feminine look.
feminine look. And she says that's not true, that won't happen.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I've done or continue to do a lot of is walking. Whether I walk on the treadmill, I was with family last week in Florida, so the weather was wonderful. So
Mm.
I got an opportunity to go out in the morning and walk, which just helps me. It's just the air, it it makes you realize of all the things that you worry about. Like if you're ever, and I want to say this as a sidebar, if you're ever having a bad day or someone sends you an email that upsets you and you want to go off and just get mad, stop what you're doing, get up and go for a walk. It brings you so much just relativity. You realize it's not that deep. The sun is shining, or even if you take a walk through your house or go on the treadmill downstairs, but get up and walk away. Because I think we lose perspective when we're just doing the same thing over and over again. But for me, it's definitely the walking, whether it's walking outside or on a treadmill. I have a herniated disc in my back. And so when I left physical therapy the last time, they were very clear about some of the exercises I had to do. And a
Right.
lot of it is good for me, right? Strengthening your core, strengthening your legs, standing up, good posture. So you're putting less stress on your back. So all of these things, including kettlebells and weights, have have really helped me to feel better. And I
Yeah.
think that exercise is just a great way for us to recenter and be kind to our bodies. And furthermore, when we're good to our bodies, even in stress, our bodies are better able to handle that
Yeah.
because we're taking care of it.
Yeah. Absolutely. And we've got the strength there to do so. Most definitely. And I tell you what, as well, with the weights as a speaker,
Hmm.
people like to see that you're fit. And if you've got definition, you won't grow huge muscles. But when you've got definition, it's the toning side. People can see that you take care of yourself, and that
Yes.
reflects, so that they know that you're going to be taking care of them as well. There's
And
a,
you walk the walk and talk the talk as well.
yeah.
Wow. Wow, that's great. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. That's great.
Yeah.
Great insight. So I'll continue to exercise, Lucy. Thank you.
Yeah, do. And then going on to nutrition, which was your third point,
Mhm.
and how important nutrition is. Again, you're taking care of your body, you're putting the nutrients in, you're eating the right
Mhm.
types of
Mhm.
foods,
Mhm.
and you're not thinking, oh, I'll skip a meal because I don't really need it and I need to do work. Again, you have to take breaks, but you
Mhm.
need to nourish. And I know this analogy has been said over and over. It's like in your car, you have to put the fuel in to get the drive going forward, to get the
Mhm.
power, to
Mhm.
get the turbo boost.
Of course.
You have to do that.
Mhm.
So when you're looking at making sure that you're getting the right nutrition or the right foods? Again, is there a kind of a tip or something that you've done specifically, Maxine, to make big changes?
I have moved more over to fruits and vegetables than other things. Does that mean that I eat junk sometimes? Yeah, I do. It was just Thanksgiving. I'm not gonna lie to you. I mean, I had everything on my plate. I mean, I had mac and cheese. It's Thanksgiving. Yeah, it's what you have to eat. It's a part of the requirement. But at the same time, being more intentional about salads, peppers. I have an air fryer. So I've started to air fry a lot of vegetables.
Hmm.
I started to do more fruits and nuts. And so the more I find that I've been intentional about eating those types of foods, the better I felt. So that even when I eat unhealthy types of food, it's different. My body reacts because my body says, you're not usually eating this, but okay, if you want to
Hmm.
do that, go ahead. But I have found that to the extent that I've been able to eat more of those things, the fruits and the vegetables, the nuts, I do quinoa, I do tofu, everything in moderation.
Hmm.
Um, I need to drink more water, but I found that once I've shifted to that, my body has felt very different.
Yeah. And I bet you find now when you eat the junk foods, like really junk foods, that it makes your body feel like junk.
It does. Your body responds differently. It's a great
Yeah.
high. That's the thing about junk food, right? It's a bit of a high after you eat it, and it's great. But then after you're like, was it really
Yeah.
worth, it's really
I was going
worth
to say for about that long.
it. Yeah, yeah.
Then you go,
So it's
oh,
ew, I shouldn't have done that,
yeah,
right? So it's give and take,
yeah,
but I would say to people, listen, don't go out there and just quit everything.
no,
Don't do that. What you do is you go in stages. You go in stages and you ask yourself, do I really need that? Let me opt for this instead of that this time. Let me do this instead of that. Because once you begin to see that change, it impacts everything, even your focus, the way you feel. When you eat healthier, it has a greater impact than just your overall demeanor and what you can do.
yeah. And the impact is a good impact because you can get good and you can get not so good impacts, but it makes a really good impact. And then you brought up the subject of focus. So this will be probably the last thing that we speak on, but focus. When you're eating the right foods, you don't go into that slump.
Mm,
You feel more able to continue on with your day. So if you've had a lunch and you've been focusing on the right types of foods
mhm, mhm.
and you've had a break, now what do you feel is your focus is different? So would you say that that's your experience as well, Maxine?
I would say that. I want to add something. One
Mm,
of the things that I've done is I've had the opportunity to do what's called health equity impact assessments, where we help organizations that are looking to open a new site or close something. We help them look at what they're doing and how that's going to impact the equity of that community, whether or not people are still going to be able to have access to equitable health care if they make that change.
mm,
And one of the things that they would talk about, the hospital that we did the assessment for, it's located in a very diverse area with a lot of different places to eat. But unfortunately, a lot of the places to eat are not good places. It's fast and it's
hmm.
affordable, but it's not healthy. And when I was talking to the CEO, he said, I could walk out of here and get something to eat, but it may not be the best choice for me. It may
Yeah.
not be the right thing. I'll be fed, but for my physical health, there's no benefit for that.
Nourished. Yeah, yeah.
Nourished. And it impacts the community in more ways than we think. Because if I'm eating that way, then my kids are eating that way,
Mm,
right? Their kids are eating that way. And then how does that affect when they go to school? How focused are they if they're not having a healthy diet?
mm.
And so when you ask me about focus, that's the first thing that came to mind for me, right? Because I think we underestimate how much all the things we do impact our focus overall.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. The growth mindset that we talked about earlier, how does that impact our focus? Well, if we're thinking not so good things about ourselves, that's going to impact our focus. What we're eating, right? Whether or not we're eating foods that are bringing that nourishment, how will that impact our attitude, right? And whether or not we can stay working in focus for a certain period of time. I think all of that plays into it, but we've thought about it in silos, and it's not, it's a whole person.
Yeah,
And we
it's
have to
holistic.
think about that in everything that we do.
Yeah, very, very good point. Absolutely. It's that holistic thing. Everything affects everything else.
Mm.
And understanding that. And I love the way you talked about the if I'm doing that, then my children are doing that. If they're doing that, then they're going to do that at school. And that's again, it's that ripple effect. But that's not a good ripple effect unless you're doing the good eating and you're
I mean,
sending out those good messages, right?
well, Lucy, I'll be honest with you. I eat healthy in front of my kids and they still want the junk. But what they say to me is, "Oh, mommy, look at you. Look at what you're eating. I need to be more like you." That may take a while for them to do that, but they'll remember
Yes, they
what I
will.
was eating. Do you
Yeah,
know what I mean? I hope
I
that
do.
that's what'll catch.
It'll catch on. Don't you worry. Keep doing what you're doing.
I'm trying my best.
So we're coming to the end of our interview, which I've absolutely thoroughly enjoyed, I have to say,
Me too.
Maxine. Do you have two or three really great top tips for our listeners? And if we go back to the conversation from earlier, those that, and I know you gave some tips already, for those that are thinking of perhaps this is one way to go, and yes, I could do it part-time around what I do, fantastic. What perhaps are the first three things that they need to think about if they're now going to take that step into entrepreneurship from working for somebody else?
I would think about what they enjoy doing, what they're good at.
Hmm.
What are some of the things that they know? People have told me I'm really great at this. Um, this brings me passion. If I wasn't doing my job, I would really love to do this thing. Find out what that is. And it could be totally different from what you're doing as a
Yeah.
professional, right? So whatever it might be, find out what brings you joy, what you're passionate about. And then once you figure out what that is, then ask yourself, how can I leverage this to help others? How can I leverage this to bring value? If I wanted to provide this to people, would it be something tangible that they would appreciate buying? Ask yourself those types of questions. And then from there, think about for yourselves, okay, now that I know that this is what I want to do, now that I know that this is what I can produce, how can I market it and what should I call it? And that takes time.
Hmm.
It took me a while to come up with the name of my company. I went back and forth. I almost named it something else at one point. I mean, I was just all over the place. And then I just landed on this. Be kind to yourself in that process and give yourself time
Very
to
good.
think about what it is I want to do and where I want to move. And then once you figure that out, it's okay if you change your mind. No one's going to come after you, right? There's no entrepreneur police. They're going to knock on the door and say, "Hey, you changed your mind." Like, no one's going to do that, right? It's okay. My coach always says, if you wait for it to be perfect, you've waited too long. And so I would say that those are the things that I would encourage people to do. And it's okay to make mistakes. We all make mistakes. That's how you learn. And
Yeah,
that's all right. And so just keep moving forward.
perfect. Wonderful advice. Thank you so much, Maxine. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your insights. Thank you for sharing your story. It's been absolutely wonderful. There is
Likewise.
going to be another video coming up on screen, so I'll see you over there. In the meantime, Maxine, if you have anything left on your heart you'd like to share, now would be the time.
I just want people to know that they all bring value. And you should believe that there are things that you can do if it's placed on your heart. And I do have a passion to set this message out to the world that we can truly all thrive inclusively.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
Fantastic. Thank you. And I'll be putting Maxine's details in the description box below. So if you want to get in touch with Maxine, find out more about how she might be able to help you or your business, then you'll find those details below. So thanks again and have a most awesome day. Bye for now.